Hello students, I am Kolla Krishna Madhavi and today we will be walking through Unit 9 Models of Consumer Behavior. Let us go into what would be the structure for today's session. Fundamentally, we will be starting with introduction, deep diving into the various models that are available and relevant to consumer behavior. We will also be talking in terms of post-purchase behavior and cognitive dissonance. So, let us go further without much ado. So, in terms of consumer decision making process, it is a very complex process that is involved here, because consumers are not only gathering information about the various products or services that are available, they are also seeing in terms of the alternatives that are possible, what are the competitors offering, what are the best price points that are available, what reaches us to the easiest extent possible, and so on and so forth. So, here the process of consumer behavior starts from pre-production to post-production. So, different determinants are there which are elemented into the consumer decision process. They could be psychological, social, cultural, economic, and so on and so forth. Let us try to understand them. So, a consumer decision making process, if we look in terms of the definition, it is a selection of an alternative out of the several alternatives that are available in the market. So, in terms of the complexity of the process, it needs to be evaluated, selected, and finally purchased. Purchase also further leads into what is considered as cognitive dissonance. In case the consumer who purchases the product or uses the product is not happy with the product or service that has come into their kitty. So, in terms of consumer behaviors, we need to identify what are their needs, what kind of information are they collecting, who are the competitors in the market, and finally, how is the consumer making their decision. So, in terms of the decision making process, there are three levels, and what are they? Extensive problem solving, limited problem solving, and routinized response behavior. So, what is extensive problem solving? Here, if you are looking in terms of say a technology product like a laptop or a smartphone, there are number of features that we are actually looking at. So, we are evaluating not only in terms of the features that are within that smartphone or laptop, but we are also comparing them vis-a-vis others in the market. So, it is a very extensive problem solving process for a customer. Whereas, in terms of a limited problem solving, they are talking in terms of say clothing or cosmetics, for example. So, in terms of clothing or cosmetics, there would be a certain evaluation that takes place. However, if I am going into a particular mall and I am going into a specific mall retail outlet, say like H&M or Marks and Spencer, then I have already limited my choices to a certain extent, and I also go with a mindset that I need to go for either a western wear or an Indian wear. So, the choices of colors, of the occasion, they are already determined. So, it is limited in terms of my problem solving. And routinized response, this is in terms of say buying a shampoo or buying a soap, where it is a routine thing. Every month more or less I buy the same products or services for my home. So, there is not much of purchase decision process that takes place. However, we need to understand that still there is a consumer decision process even for routinized responses. However, it may not appear to be that in the face or obvious, because it is far more faster. So, types of purchase decisions. So, in types of purchase decisions, we are looking at number one, a complex buying behavior. So, here we are talking in terms of where a number of factors need to be considered. We just talked about a smartphone or a laptop or a car, for example. is a complex buying behavior, or second is dissonance reducing buying behavior. That means I have already purchased a product which is easily available, but after purchasing the product, the customer is facing certain post purchase dissonance or unhappiness over the product or dissatisfaction. Then the third one is in terms of a habitual buying behavior. So here we are talking in terms of, say, I am going for purchasing a matchbox, or say a lighter or a toothpaste. I buy it month on month or regularly. So I don't put too much effort into the buying process. At the same time, we have a fourth format of customers who seek variety. They want something different each time. So if I am purchasing a certain soap this month, I want to try out a new type of soap. Say this month I am using a jasmine soap, next time I want to try an aloe vera soap, then I want to try a turmeric soap. So I want to seek certain variety. Again, if you talk in terms of restaurants, also we see this. Consumers try to seek variety in terms of the food that they purchase. So the process of consumer decision making, this consists of 5 stages. It's a 5-stage model. So fundamentally it talks of recognizing a need or problem, information search, comparing alternatives, purchasing the product, and post purchase behavior. So in terms of importance of studying consumer behavior, we need to understand that there are certain trends, certain formats, certain fashions or fads or changes that are taking place in the market, and we need to be in tune with those. So this is very, very critical, both from a marketer's point of view and a salesperson's point of view, to make sure that they reach out to the right customers who have the right potential from their company's objective standpoint. So factors that involve the customer, and not only are multifold, but the level of degree or the degree of active reasoning also varies. For example, there is involvement. Certain products have less involvement. For example, I am buying a soap, there is less involvement. It may be just me who is purchasing the product, but if I am buying a car, it's a high complex, high risk, high cost product. So there is more of involvement. Differentiation, how is my product differentiating from others? The time pressure, how quickly I need to make a decision. So the stages in buying decision process are 5-stage framework, as we call. We just walk through them: problem recognition, information search, evaluation of alternatives, purchase, and post purchase. So we will be looking at each of them in more detail. Let us first try to understand from a problem recognition point of view. The start of buyer decision making process. This is the first step. I know I need something. I need soap, I need food, I need groceries, I need toiletries. Problem recognition. Then second one is information search. This needs to be understood in terms of the types of sources that are available. There could be personal sources, that is my family and friends, or commercial sources like the company's advertisements, or public sources. For example, it is out in newspapers or journals, or experiential sources where I have purchased that product previously, or I have used the product, so I know what it is like. So it narrows down my search. The third one is in terms of evaluation of alternatives. So this could be in terms of evaluating who are the competitors who are selling these products, offering these products at what price point, what are the product features, how are they differentiating one from the other, etc. This becomes very, very apparent when we say we are buying a car, because there are so many competitors that are available, and each has a different set of features that they are offering. For example, if I am going for an SUV versus a sedan, then my choices are also varied in terms of what the market has to offer to me. Then the purchase decision. We will be talking about this in a little more detail in just a minute, but this is the penultimate stage where purchase actually takes place. And then we have the post purchase decision. This is where the cognitive dissonance sets in if I am not happy with the product. So, in terms of the 5-stage framework that we have been discussing, one point that I would like to further emphasize is the purchase decision. Philip Kotler talks in terms of the final purchase decision. It could be disrupted by 2 factors. And what are these 2 factors? One is the negative feedback and the second is the level of motivation. What kind of feedback is being given by the reference groups, by my family, by opinion leaders in terms of the product, whether it is in terms of social media or it is more personal to within my social range. The second is the level of motivation. Do I really need that product? If I have a strong need for the product, then I'll definitely go for that product, but otherwise I may tend to defer my decision. So, that is what Philip Kotler talks about in 2009, that final purchase decision may be disrupted. In terms of the type of purchase, there are 3 things that we need to consider. One is routine, second is limited, third is extensive. So, routine is products that we buy habitually, limited is where I buy once in a while, groceries are routine, limited is say clothes, I do not buy them every month, I buy them once in a while when there is a special occasion or a festival. Extensive, where you are putting in a lot of effort into purchasing that particular product. So, involvement, depending on whether it is a routine, limited or extensive purchase that is taking place, my involvement may be higher or lower. For a routine product, my involvement will be less because I am buying a soap which is a repeat purchase, but for a car or an AC, my involvement will be higher because I am purchasing it only once in a while. So, a buyer behavior consists of certain categories. Now, what is it? We will be talking about each of these categories in a bit, but let us first understand that there are 8 models that need to be understood. The first one is economic model, second is input process output model, third one is psychological model, fourth is sociological model, next one is Howard Sheth model, Angel Collat Blackwell model, we talk of Nicosia model, and finally we will go to the model of family decision making. So, in terms of the first model, that is the economic model, we understand that man or a human is a rational animal. So, it depends on our utility function that our buying decision can vary. So, consumers follow the principle of maximum utility. It is based on diminishing marginal utility. That means, the more I am exposed to a particular product or service, the more I use it, the less I enjoy its ultimate advantages. This could be in terms of price effect, substitution effect or income effect. These are the 3 economic man model features or effects that we are talking about. What is price effect? The lower the price, the more the quantity purchased. Second is substitution effect. If I have somebody who will be offering me an alternative product at a lower price, then in all probability I will go for that particular product. Income effect. So, when my income is more, I am willing to try out more products. In terms of economic theory, we also need to understand that price is a very, very important element. The second one that we will be looking at is the input process output model. So, here it is a very, very simple model where it talks first in terms of inputs, what are the factors going into that consumer's decision process. Second, what is the process that is taking place within a consumer's mind or a consumer's environment, and third is the output, that is the actual purchase or not to purchase. So, in this model, in the input we consider 2 factors, one is firm's marketing effort and the social environment. We have talked about this in length social environment, my lifestyle, my age, my income, and other factors also are factored in. In terms of the process, we are talking in terms of 4 elements. One is personality, second is motivation, third is attitude, and fourth is perception. And how these 4 factors together are making a binding aspect in a consumer's mind in terms of their final purchase decision. And finally, the output, where I either decide to buy the product or I decide to skip the product. So, the third one is the psychological model. So, here we are talking in terms of Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Here, this is a pyramid model which talks about 5 stages of purchase. The first one is a physical stage, where I am talking about physiological needs like food, clothing, shelter, roti, kapda, makan as we talk, but makan is not a physiological need. Yeah. So, then is a safety need. This could be both in terms of psychological or physical safety. Then we talk in terms of the next need, that is need based. How much is the need that the customer is having. Then we talk in terms of a finer element that happens, and then finally we move to the self actualization. So, this is a 5-step process of needs that take place, right from basic needs to the final needs, that is the secondary needs, the self actualization needs. So, here we also need to understand that these needs may co-occur. For example, when I am talking in terms of my basic needs like physiological needs, I may also have self actualization needs, that is, I have already crossed the esteem needs and reached a stage of self actualization where I want to satisfy my ego or satisfy my lifestyle or satisfy my role in the society. So, I seek something beyond. So, that is where we come to the 5th stage. So, after the esteem needs. The next stage that we are talking about, that is the sociological model. Sociological model talks in terms of my interactions with the society. So, a consumer is an element of the society. We are a social animal. That is the fundamental aspect of social psychology. Man is a social animal. We do not live in isolation. We are not Robinson Crusoes who can live on an island or the rest of our lives. We need people around us. So, that means when we talk in terms of people, it could be in terms of a family, it could be in terms of friends, it could be in terms of groups, associations, or even organizations. And also we need to understand that both primary groups, that is family and friends and very well known people, or secondary groups like colleagues at work, acquaintances, seniors, they are also influencing our purchase decision. Then we move to the 5th model, which is the Howard Sheth model. This was designed in 1969, and this is a well known model of consumer behavior. So, here various intricate elements have been factored in, whether it is psychological or social or even marketing influences that can decide or influence a consumer's purchase decision. So, this also involves extensive problem solving, limited problem solving, and routine behavior. We talked about this a while ago. However, this model is a slight departure from the input process output model. It has 4 stages. The first stage is the input stage, second is the perceptual and learning constructs, third is outputs, and fourth is exogenous or external variables. Now, exogenous or external variables are not given in the model per se. However, we need to understand that the model goes beyond that in terms of the external variables which also factor in. For example, things like economic downturn or wars that take place or tariffs that are put in by a country. We have been hearing a lot about the tariffs and the barriers that are happening, say, between US and India or China. There are multiple discussions that are going on. So, all these are important elements that need to be considered. So, here in terms of a Howard-Sheth model, the first stage is the input stage, that is, there is something called significative stimuli. What are this? These are physical or tangible characteristics of a product. For example, the packaging, the size, the the price, the quality, etc. Second is symbolic stimuli. What is this? This talks in terms of whether the price is high or low, the quality is up to the mark, it is average, what kind of talk is going on. It's symbolic. And the third one is social stimuli. So, inputs, significative, symbolic and social stimuli. Here we are talking in terms of family, friends, colleagues, acquaintances, etc., that we have been discussing a while ago. The second stage is the perceptual and learning constructs. So, here we are talking about psychological variables. They could be in terms of the consumer's motives, attitudes, behavior, their expressions, their final decisions. So, all these are based on certain stimuli that is factored into a consumer, and how they accept that stimuli and how they respond to that particular stimuli. Then there is a certain ambiguity that also occurs, that is called as stimulus ambiguity. There is also a perceptual bias. For example, if I am talking in terms of say an iPhone, if I am not able to afford it, I may have a perceptual bias. I may say that it is highly priced. However, the features that are being offered by an iPhone are not necessarily on par with, say, a competitor's product. So, there is a perceptual bias. It is a perception that is influencing my decision making process. And stimulus ambiguity is when I am not able to understand how the cues that are coming into me or reaching me are being interpreted, whether they have to be interpreted as positive or negative. There could be mixed stimuli signals that are coming to me. And then of course, we spoke about exogenous or extraneous variables. Then we move to the next one, that is the Engel-Collat-Blackwell model. Now, this is a very important model. It again consists of 4 distinct stages. So, what are these 4 stages? The first one is information input stage. So, here the consumer gets information either from marketing or promotional activities by the firm, or from other sources like social media, etc. So, information input stage. The second one is the information processing stage. So, Engel-Collat-Blackwell talks about processing, that is the consumer receiving a message, allocating space for understanding the message, synthesizing it, and finally coming to a certain understanding. Then we have the decision process stage, and finally the variables influencing the decision process. We talked about individual characteristics like psychological, motives, lifestyle, etc., social influences like culture, reference groups, subcultures, and situational influences like consumers' financial position. So, next let us move to the Nicosia model, which is the 7th model, which was proposed by Professor Francisco M. Nicosia in 1966. Here this is a model which talks about a relationship between the firm and its potential consumers. It also talks about the messages that are coming from the firm in terms of advertisements or other promotional activities, and how they are influencing a consumer's decision. If the customer is satisfied with the promotion inputs that is reaching them, they may decide to go for a positive response, that is purchase, or drop the decision. Here Nicosia model talks in terms of subfield 1, 2, 4 and 3 and 4. So, here field 1 is the product's attributes and consumers attributes also. Then we are talking in terms of field 2, which is search and evaluation, field 3, which is the actual purchase process, and field 4, which is the feedback of sales results. So, moving on to the last model, that is the model of family decision making. Here we have influencers who influence the decision process, gatekeepers who decide whether to purchase or not to purchase, deciders who actually take a decision like the seniors in the family or people who hold the purse strings, buyers who are actually purchasing the product either on their own behalf or on behalf of someone else, preparers. These are people who are actually either going to consume the product, like a mother prepares food for their family, or user who is going to actually use the product. For example, in terms of say a television, the entire family views it. And then we talk in terms of post purchase behavior. This is very critical from a consumer's point of view, but equally critical from a firm's point of view, because the firm is able to get additional inputs from the consumer in terms of their response to the purchase. Have they gone for a high level of satisfaction, or have they moved to a cognitive dissonance stage where they are unhappy with the customer? So, a buyer's response will help the consumer convey to the company what their actual emotions, feelings and behavior is in terms of the product. So, there is also something which is equally important. So far we have been talking about individual models. We also have an industrial buying model. So, there are three main elements that need to be considered. First one is, it is a very complex process. Second, conditions are multiple. Third, there can be differences of opinion because there is a purchase committee that is involved. The purchase committee need not be the actual user. For example, in a firm, there could be a purchase committee which is part of the purchase department, but the end user could be the IT department and the product could be laptops. So, the purchase objectives or expectations could be explicit objectives, where we are talking in terms of delivery, quantity, number of items, price, etc., or even implicit objectives. For example, what is the supplier's reputation, where are they located, and so on and so forth. So, we also need to understand that in terms of product specific features and company specific features which are part of the decision process, there is also certain conflicts that arise, and conflict resolution is a very important part of industrial buying behavior. This could be in terms of problem solving, persuasion, bargaining, politicking, etc. In summary, what we are talking is consumer behavior models are very important both from a marketer and a salesperson's point of view. A firm is highly dependent on the consumer behavior to understand in terms of the marketing mix, the 4 P's, the product, price, place and promotion, to take a final decision. So, thank you and look forward to the next session. Have a good day.